Now, home is not an option. The land is consumed by war. It's forcing increasing numbers of Syrians into the perilous and highly expensive journey across the Mediterranean Sea, seeking sanctuary in what's seen as the promised land, Sweden. The Scandinavian country has opened its doors and, of course, its generous welfare system to asylum seekers, a compelling prospect for thousands. In the last of our series on the migrants seeking a new life in Europe, our Europe editor, Matt Fry, has been to find out how Sweden is providing many with a home.
Stockholm, the picture postcard epitome of affluence, tolerance and safety, as well as a country that prides itself on welcoming the traumatized and huddled masses of foreign conflicts. It helps to flee a war that is currently in the headlines. And here at the asylum centre on the outskirts of Stockholm, you find one nationality above all others amongst the new arrivals: Syrian. They process around 30 families every week. And the hearing room for asylum seekers has all the thrill of a dentist waiting room. But the stories you hear between these sanitized walls are testimonies of misery and despair. We met the Haroons from the Syrian town of Hama. We've given them a false name to protect their identity. They came with their 5 children. This is their first day in Sweden, and to get here they had to spend 6 days on rickety fishing boats heading from Egypt to Sicily. That trip alone, organized by people smugglers, cost them $10,000 and almost their lives.
بعدها طلعونا على مركب طوله 14 متر، شيء 140 واحد فيه. أنا كنت عم أشوف الموت كل لحظة 100 مرة. لما مرحلة نيجي لأولادي سامحوني وانتهى الموت. هدول 3 أيام بالمركب الصغير ما فيه لا مي ولا أكل. صابنا دوار بحر. صار الكل يستفرغ. وولدت هي المرأة فقطعوا لها الحبل الصري بشفرة. طفل جاي الولد خلال 10 دقائق وماشي حاله. كانت المأساة الحقيقية. يعني الغرق محتم. ما في مجال يعني. أنا بحب سوريا بس يطير والشقر راجع.
This is also Sweden, the town of Södertälje, about half an hour from Stockholm. It's the kind of place which the Haroons will probably end up calling home. Housing estates built for Swedes, now almost exclusively home to immigrants. Half the population here is Syrian. We met Butros, another false name. He came from Syria a month ago. He also took the boat from Egypt to Italy and filmed some of it on his phone. 6 days, $7,000. There are some very wealthy Egyptian fishermen out there.
It was hot at morning and so cold at night. 1 meal a day, meal a day, 2 cups of water.
2 cups of water and 1 meal a day?
Yes.
How many people were on the boat?
100 Syrian and 20 sailors.
Who were Egyptians?
Egyptian sailors. Our engine stopped.
Your engine stopped?
Yeah, in the middle of the sea, between the waves, and the waves was so high.
So that was really dangerous?
Yes. Everybody started crying. Even the men was start crying because of their children. I was just shocked looking at them.
Is this your future here? This?
No, not what I dreamed of, not what I wanted. Yeah.
Butros has another conundrum. He's an Assyrian Christian who hates Assad and the radical Muslim groups fighting him in equal measure. That makes him a young man who's lost much more than just his home.
I can't see my future now. That's why I'm lost towards Syria. I don't know what's gonna be our future there. So that's the hard thing. Yeah.
The laughter of children echoes through the estate, thumbing its nose at all the pain that has taken up residence here. But every one of them is a refugee from war. How many from Syria? Syria. 1, 2, Syria, 3 from Syria. How many from Iraq? Okay. An underaged and surprisingly cheerful snapshot of the segregated and vexed world they've left behind. And the Syrians are divided about Assad. Most of these kids like him because their Christian parents see him as a protector. Playground politics imported from the war zone. In another corner of the housing estate, I meet Osama, an anti-Assad blogger and journalist who told me something I hadn't expected.
I am more afraid here in Sweden than I was in Syria.
Really?
Yes.
Why?
In Syria, I could really hide myself. Then I know who is my enemy. I know that the state is my enemy. But here in Sweden, you don't know.
Do you feel threatened in the community here because you're known as someone who's anti-Assad?
Of course, you know, just imagine like I can't be in public. I can't use buses. I can't use trains. I can't go to like we have been today in this the migration board area.
Shortly before we spoke to Osama, he'd come across some pro-Assad Syrians in this immigration office. They threatened to kill him. They almost came to blows. No country in the world has more generous and welcoming asylum policies than Sweden. In fact, this country has now granted automatic and permanent residency status to anyone coming from Syria. But as we discovered in the town of Södertälje, that generosity also has some unintended consequences. In this town of 90,000 souls, a third are refugees from Syria, mostly Christians in this case. The national government respects their wishes to live together in the same community. Why? The local government is left dealing with the burden. So you're the Swedish mayor of a Swedish town close to the Swedish capital, but sometimes you feel as if you're running a small part of the Middle East.
Yes, of course, and that's a main part of the job. When something happens there, it will give effects here.
Do you think that if more Syrians come, if the situation gets more acute, that this will test Sweden's tolerance towards asylum seekers? Is there a limit to that tolerance?
I think it would be better if the whole country would help out.
And that's exactly what the Swedish government is saying to the rest of Europe. We have reached the limits of our generosity. We need your help. Sweden is taking in the vast number of Syrian refugees. Can the system cope?
I think that if you look at it from a long-term perspective, there will be challenges. But this is exactly why we are calling for more of resettlement among the 28 member states, more of coordination and cooperation, more of solidarity.
Another of their worries. The Central Mosque in Stockholm has the reputation of being the most radical in Sweden. Its former imam has been accused of running arms into Syria and recruiting young Swedish Muslims for jihad. According to some official estimates, as many as 200 have already gone to fight. Outside the mosque, we were met with muffled denials. The former imam at this mosque, Haitham Rahman, he's running an arms smuggling operation. He's got his own militia.
I don't think that's right.
You don't think that's right?
No, that's not right.
And in case you're confused, we are still in Sweden, still on the outskirts of Stockholm, in another housing estate turned refugee camp. We spent half the day here in Tensta, and in all that time we didn't see a single white Swedish face. So much for integration. Here in places like Tensta, you come across a whole generation of young Muslim men who speak Swedish to each other, who carry Swedish passports, who are Swedish citizens by all intents and purposes, and yet they don't feel fully integrated into Swedish society. This country's asylum policies are far more progressive than society itself. But just try talking to them about it. We're from England.
Okay,
Channel 4 News.
No, I'm sorry. I think nobody wants to.
Oh, really?
Try to talk to George Galloway.
Young Muslim men, once children of war, now adults looking for a role. They've been caressed by Sweden, but never fully embraced. What does that do to them? And what does it say about the country that prides itself on being Europe's conscience and the world's mecca of political asylum?
Matt Fry there on the Syrian refugees trying to build a new life in Sweden.